And so the first thing anybody who's going out on their own has to do is discover your niche, which, by the way, I have a 5-day challenge at Built to Scale if you're interested that will help you through this. But it's really all about what software do you use and who do you use it for and what problems are you solving for them. If you can articulate that, at least to yourself, now you know how to create more content to attract those eyeballs. And this is a pro tip. When I started my YouTube, when I started Gap Consulting, my first YouTube video on Airtable, I put some advertising dollars behind.
Thank you, everybody, for joining on another episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. My name is Chris Kiefer, and today I am joined by Gareth Pronovost. Did I say it correctly?
That's really good. Yes, sir. Good
enough. Well, thanks, Gareth, for coming on. And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? 30 seconds. Who are you? What do you do? And I don't know. I can't decide if we should get into how you got to where you are, but you can. I'll let you take it in the direction you want.
For sure. Well, who am I? I started a YouTube channel, let's call it 5.5 years ago. And just to sprinkle in a little bit of how I got here, it was because I was laid off. And I didn't know what my next move was. And I found this tool. I was just reading a Business Insider article, and it was about this software called Airtable. And I looked at it and I thought, hey, that looks pretty cool. Searched online and couldn't find any solid content on it that talked about how to actually implement this thing and like what it could do for you as a small business owner. And it just kind of, everything aligned. Kismet. I put together a couple videos. Within a week, people were calling and saying, hey, cool video, and any chance I can hire you to build me the thing that you were demonstrating? So from that, practically overnight, a business grew, and now we're the leading consulting firm for Airtable and other similar no-code tools.
That's awesome. It's funny, I'll give you my background. So, because why we're here today, I stumbled across your stuff. I'm trying to remember the first time, and it was a YouTube video, like probably everybody stumbles across, consultants these days. But it was like a long time ago. I was a marketing director for this company called Webfoot Painting, and we were trying to get our integrate some data that we had onto a website of ours. Mm-hmm. And so there was a tool that I can't remember if it was your video or we saw a couple different people explaining this, but it integrated Webflow with Airtable. So you could have dynamic content that's basically updated from this Airtable database that's pushing to your website in real time.
Oh yeah.
And then, that nothing kind of happened there, but at Webfoot, I was like the king of Zapier and just automation stuff. So I was the marketing guy, but I have an engineering background, and I just would talk to someone over lunch and they'd tell me what they do, send an email 30 times a day to every customer for next week or whatever. I'm just yeah. You've got to be kidding me. I'm the marketing guy. This doesn't really affect me, but at the same time, I can't sleep at night knowing that you're doing that. So Then I would start, just plugging in things and solving stuff, whatever. And long story short, as of 6 months ago, I left Webfoot, and now I'm consulting other painting companies specifically in automation and just connecting their systems together. And so one of the tools that I want to learn is Airtable. And so I got back into this, learning phase of right now everybody uses Smart Sheets in the painting space, not Smartsuite, which I thought was interesting when I stumbled across that, the slight name change there, because they're similar, but obviously very different.
Very different.
So that's what I've been doing for the last 6 months, and it's been great. So that's how I came across you, and I have this podcast that I've been doing for 3 or 4 years now, and it's kind of my outlet to talk about all the nerdy stuff that the most people that I meet in real life don't really care about because it doesn't affect them.
100%. That's the worst, right? All your friends. I feel like this work that we do is so siloed that it's so niche, and I don't think it should be. In fact, I think part of my personal mission is just to make it more mainstream, because to your point, you're talking to somebody in a totally different department at your previous gig, and they're using processes that are wildly inefficient, and you're like, hey man, I can save you an hour a day by spinning up a quick automation, and before you know it, you've reclaimed all of this time. Getting people to shift their mindset and to start thinking in that way is, I mean, if there's a hill to die on, I can't think of a better one.
That's awesome. So what are diving into like your expertise, and I don't know if how easy this question is, but if you were to pick your top 3 softwares for B2C companies, because that's who primarily listens to this, that could get a massive ROI from learning or, having someone implement for them or whatever route they end up choosing to take. But what are your top 3, like, you got to do these?
Okay. Let's break it down more into categories, if I may. In terms of like, what type of software do you need in order to get these massive results and huge ROI? One type of software is a place to store your data so that you have a single source of truth. Now, my 2 choices for that are Airtable and Smartsuite. Smartsuite, not Smartsheet, to your earlier point. So these are effectively, and don't let this terminology throw you off if you're not a tech geek like us, but it's a relational database. And that can seem intimidating if you've never used these tools. But the good news is it looks and feels like a spreadsheet. So really all you're doing is storing your data somewhere. And the database component is is important because you need your data to talk to each other. And when you use a spreadsheet like Excel or even Smartsheet, nothing's talking, nothing's connected. So that's number 1 piece of software that I think is like massively important. Number 2 is a true automation tool. Now it's absolutely true that a lot of these other software, they have automation baked into them. So you can do a little magic here and there and update some stuff. But a true automation tool, to your point earlier, is something like Zapier or Make.com. By the way, worst rebranding ever. Whoever did that, please, why would you name a company Make? There's so many reasons that's a bad idea, but we won't get into that. It's a fabulous tool, name aside. And so Zapier, I'm sure pretty much everyone's familiar with at some point these days because it's how you pass information from one tool to another. And so if you're going to build a source of truth, which is the first thing I talked to, you need to figure out a way to get information in and out of there so that it actually stores your information. So that's where you're going to come in with a true automation tool. Now, maybe in the future, Airtable and I'm going to get so confused between the 2 names today. Smartsuite and Airtable maybe in the future will build such a robust automation platform internal to the database that we don't need to worry about the third-party automation. But for now, I think you need at least one of those, Zapier or Make.
Yeah.
And then,
what are,
lastly,
do you have another category?
Because you asked for 3, yeah, my third category would be, do you need a front end? How are people engaging with that information? And so for this, there are tools like Softer.io, Stacker.com, which allow you to essentially build a portal on top of the data that you're storing, and you can create your own web app that anybody in your organization can access, and they can read, write, edit, all the things, the data, and essentially move your process along. So that's a long-winded answer. Sorry.
But those are 3. I like how you broke that down. So I'm going to recap that with database. Your second one was automation tool, and the third one was an interface of some sort to actually use it.
Correct. And I would say the interface part is kind of hit or miss. Not everybody needs one. So if you have to go all in on 2, database and automation, all day long.
So next question I love asking, especially people like you that are deep in this stuff. I like using these as examples of what is possible, because I feel like sometimes people put automation into like, I want to send the customer's name from here to here. It's like, that's cool. Great. That's a great starting point. And that actually did eliminate, if you did all the customer information, there's 5 copy and paste. So good.
Sure.
But that's like the tip of the iceberg. What are some cool automations that you have done or seen done that and I like I don't even care if the ROI was not there because maybe the company was too small to really leverage this, but just stuff that you're like, that is insane. I did not even know that was possible. And you just see like the layers of like and maybe you've got more than one, but what's a couple that come to mind of like, I didn't know you could do this. And someone is taking this piece of information, manipulating it and spitting out X.
This is, I mean, the answer to this question is so super niche that, because the really cool ones that like these days really, you know, wow me are so far down the rabbit hole. So for anybody listening who's like, that's impossible, like this is advanced stuff, right? Like this isn't where we start. So let's just preface that. So I think the coolest one was actually a script that was written where it was a dog grooming business that said, I need to book this appointment. And here's the address. It's a mobile grooming service with, you know, those vans that'll pull up to your house and show you where they're going. So I need to book it at this address. What's my availability? And it would calculate the drive time, all in the automation, right? This was all happening in script. So it would calculate the drive time from all the different, close places and say, is it feasible to even, like, let's say you had an hour window. Is it even feasible for you to perform the service for this dog that you've asked for, which might take 40 minutes? I'm going to add drive time to it, save you gas by making sure that you're like getting mapped to close routes. So it wouldn't, you know, if you were all the way south and you had to go all the way north on your next appointment, it wouldn't recommend that because it knows it was insane. And so at the end of the day, what was the output? It gave you 3 different options that were viable options within the next 2 weeks to choose from that were efficient for your business. So it wound up saving time and transportation, gas costs, and just ultimately making a better business. Like, I don't even know how you calculate the ROI on something like that because it's just so in the weeds. I mean, I guess you could stand up comparisons from previous, months where you didn't have the automation. How much gas did we spend? How many appointments did we do on average? Versus how many did we do once we had the automation? I'm sure you saw increased efficiencies, both in terms of quantity of pets served and also, reduced costs in gas.
Totally.
To be able to do those things simultaneously, you're moving both ends of the needle, right? I mean, it's insane. Yeah,
that's awesome. Was this like the customers were going and interacting with this, or is this I call in and the receptionist this is what's being presented to the receptionist?
Yeah, exactly. They had a manager that stood back and kind of booked all this stuff. So people would come in and they would say, or not come in, they would call or fill out a form online requesting an appointment. They'd supply their
address,
information, and the manager was just like, now I know how to effectively.
So it's like, I have a 4:00 Tuesday, 1:00 Thursday, or 3:00 on Friday, and they just say,
exactly.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Insane.
That's awesome. Give me another one. I feel like I have so much follow up on just that one, but I want to hear, like, give me another just like absurd, solution.
Here's a fun one that we use internally. We've got a bunch of contractors that are helping us deliver our projects, and they will invoice us weekly because we want to make sure that everyone's getting paid on a regular basis and incentivized to continue, working with us, obviously. And it used to take us a day a week. One of our managers would spend a day a week just doing payroll, sifting through all the submissions for all this stuff. And we built an automation that talks from Airtable to QuickBooks. So people are putting in their information, and it automatically creates what QuickBooks calls a bill, which is like a payable that you owe. Automatically creates it in QuickBooks. So now it takes what used to take the better part of a day, now takes all of 5 minutes to look at all the bills in QuickBooks and say, check, 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 pay all these, the end, everything's good.
That's awesome. I love that. I'm trying to think of a weird, like, this is not to the level that you just said, but this is an example of the archaicness that businesses just deal with. And they never even crossed their mind to try to solve this. But one of them was the person would book the appointment, and then they had someone that would go through and type in every address and look at Google Maps for the distance just from the shop to the address, and they'd have, they process 100 jobs a month. And so she's doing this, it's spread out. So it's not, that's the other thing is that I feel like the wasted time is never like, oh, I just wasted my whole day. It's like,
right.
You don't even realize that it took you, there was 5 minutes at 5 points in your day, and that happens every day. And, it's that type of thing that I feel like ends up being a massive cost to the business, and they don't even realize it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Airtable and Smartsuite. Which one? I actually watched a video of yours, and maybe I'll link that in the description. I think you compared. I don't know what your latest one is comparing them, but you could tell me if the one that I saw is not the latest one. But what is your? Give me the background. Airtable's been around for a long time, and then if I understand correctly, Smartsuite was like being developed by some venture capital or something. And they just kind of were surprised we're in the market, and they're almost the identical to Airtable, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to remember back because, I'm sure all your listeners can appreciate how quickly tech changes, right? But even just 4 years ago, Airtable felt like a much different tool than it does today. It's just growing and new features, new enhancements constantly being updated. Well, we've been working in Airtable exclusively since we started our business 5.5 years ago. When another tool came onto the scene, similar to Notion, like we took a look at Notion, but it didn't quite have the depth of relational data that we got from Airtable, so we passed on it. Another tool came out that was it was like a hybrid between Notion and Airtable. I don't want to shame them or call them out because I'm going to say something unfavorable, so I'll just say that. There was another tool. And we moved some projects onto it because we were really bullish and excited. And we were like, yeah, this is amazing. And they all went to crap. And it was just terrible.
What do you mean by that? Like the company or the program died or like fizzled out?
The software couldn't support the depth of relationships that we were building. And we just, frankly, it was on us. We did not stress test the tool sufficiently, and then we got all excited because it looked so shiny, and we were like, let's go do this thing, and it blew up in our faces, and we had a lot of egg on our face with one big client in particular that's like a Fortune 100 company that we were just like, oh man, and wound up costing us tens of thousands of dollars. Anyway, live and learn, right? So we were like, okay, well, we're going to be very, very hesitant to ever jump in on new tools again. And then Smartsuite came out of the woodwork in a way that I thought that Airtable had such a lead. I didn't even think that it was possible, frankly. And Smartsuite came out, and here they are. They've got this founding team that has had a successful what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, $200 million exit. I don't even know how many digits that is. We'll just go with that. They've got a lot of money just personally. And not to mention connections to VCs and all this other stuff. And they developed this tool in secret with like 100 developers spread out around the world. So they're basically like never sleeping as a company. And they put this thing together in secret, and then they just launched it I think it was about the end of last year, 2022. And it rivals Airtable in so many ways. And they're very similar for a number of reasons, but there are things that they both do better at present. I gotta say, my gut reaction here is probably over the next 5 years. If you ask me today which one was better, I would say Airtable. I've stress tested it. I can honestly say that I think it's going to be around. I know it's going to be around. I know it can handle it. I've built hundreds of projects on it. That would be my choice. But if you're asking me what I think is going to happen in the next 3 years, next 5 years, I think Smartsuite's going to start eating Airtable's lunch, especially because Airtable's really starting to focus on enterprise clients. And, a lot of our clients at Gap Consulting, my consulting business, they're small, medium businesses. They don't have $10,000 a month to spend on Airtable Enterprise license. They're looking for a few $100s a month to get their team of 5 people up and running in some good software. And I think that's what Smartsuite's going to start peeling away at Airtable at.
Yeah, it's interesting because the cost is I guess their whole pricing structure is different as well, right?
Yeah, Airtable's
The way
got this
that they
kind of
incrementally
black box
increase.
approach. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the way that they incrementally, like all softwares they have, you can pay for basic or pro or whatever, but they also charge based on users versus, I can't remember the exact details, but they also are just coming to market with a different approach altogether.
True, and you can also add guest users to your account for free. So they can't edit stuff, but they get full read access, and they're totally free, whereas in Airtable, not so much. You can give somebody read-only access, but it's like to a specific thing. It's like, here's a table, right? If you're actually adding them in to the database itself, you're adding them as a user. So
interesting. So if you could go back and, so you said been running, or the first YouTube video was 6 years ago? What'd you say?
Sounds about right. Yeah. About 6.
So if you were to go back and tell yourself, 5 years ago, Gareth, and maybe it was even when you were in your other job, and this could be specifically on like advice for growing this business, or maybe just like career advice. I just think it's interesting to hear people's responses to this question. What is like, you could give very specific on YouTube or just in general, your outlook on, it could even be unfortunate scenarios of getting laid off, but yeah, what would you tell yourself back then?
I tried my hand at a couple of business ventures in the past, and they were unsuccessful. And I kind of got to the point where I was like, well, I haven't made it work. I'm going to go do the responsible thing and go to work for someone. And I thought that sounded safe because, like I said, I tried other stuff before, and it never really stuck. I wish if I could go back, I felt like the time that I spent in my corporate jobs was wasted because I wasn't bettering my skills as an entrepreneur, and I always knew I wanted to be a business owner, and like, why did I derail from that plan? The big thing for me is really understanding and embracing failure as a part of the journey as a business owner. And I know that sounds so cliche to say these days, but if I hadn't failed a bunch of times, like I had to make stupid mistakes in order to figure this out. I liken it to anything that you try to learn. Recently, at the age of 40, I decided I was going to start to learn how to play hockey. Never having ice skated before in my life. Absolutely love it. Am absolutely terrible at it, and I fall all the time. But that's just part of the journey, right? And being okay with that, I wish I got into that mindset earlier. The the mindset that failure is a part of the process and embrace it.
Well, I'm assuming that now because we just, this is actually kind of a funny thing that, so I have I'm trying to think of the best way to enter into this story. So I found you, went online, booked a discovery call with Matt, I think his name was. Right. And so we're having Gap Consulting kind of help us with our internal processes. And then at the same time, I was debating, should I take this course? And I assume that from what I have seen on you, just the whole funnel, how you've set that up, it looks like ClickFunnels, because I have experience, or I'm not like a ClickFunnels expert, but it looks like you've obviously invested quite a bit of energy into optimizing that part of the business as well, correct? Like just the course revenue or strategy around that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, to kind of back that up a little bit, we kind of look at consulting services as, well, let me say not services, but consulting clients or prospective clients typically come at or they come to us rather with one of three needs. They either say, hey, I really want you to teach me how to do this so that I can kind of master it myself. Or they say, I got myself 90% of the way there and I'm stuck and I just need like a little help getting over the hump. Or they say, I don't have the bandwidth to pick all this up and do it. I need you guys to build it for us. So basically, we create three services that match each of those. And I guess the course is our response to the first one, which is to say, hey, man, I just really want to learn this stuff because I think it's cool. And that's where my passion lies because, like I said earlier, I want everybody to do this. I want to shout about automation from the rooftops, but I feel like nobody's listening, which is weird. But it's just still so new and still so niche.
Yeah. So my follow-up to that was going to be two things. A business coach of mine said that people buy from you the way that you buy from others. And I thought that was interesting. I had to think about that for a while. And one thing that I've always done for forever is just ask for a discount. So it's like, but as I've gotten deeper in business, I still do, because I can't remember what book or where I heard this, but it was basically trying to overcome the fear of rejection. It might have been in a TED Talk, actually. And they were saying, like, you should just go and, like, ask Starbucks, hey, could I get a discount on this coffee? Just like anywhere you go, just throw it out there and see what happens. Because oftentimes, even big businesses like Starbucks, employees have some wiggle room to do things. And depending upon the day or the person, you might find out that, you know what, I can't give you that, but I'll give you some extra whipped cream or whatever,
Right.
And so I've always been someone that asks for discounts. However, I love and respect people that stick with their pricing. So anyways, I asked Matt for a discount, and obviously he like kicked it off to you. But I was going to tell you that I was going to be a little disappointed in taking the course if the price would have come down. Because now, I don't know if that makes sense. Because it's like, the value, and this is the value, this is what it is, so take it or leave it, right?
Right.
Versus, and that's a similar thing that I'm like moving towards with my clients, is like when someone's like, they're hemming and hawing on the cost. It's like, well, we just went through all of your pain and like all the ways we're going to solve this and how we're going to tackle this. And we've identified paradise and how we're going to get there and how long it's going to take. And we know that that's valuable, and it's 10 times more valuable than our cost. So is this actually a cost problem, or do you just want a discount? And people are like, I just want a discount. I'm like, okay, well, this is my livelihood, so this is what it costs, and I'd love to work with you, But anyways, I was just going to say that I respect and was actually kind of excited that you did not discount it further, I should say, because that I believe also that people pay, or the more people pay, the more people pay attention. And that's obviously there's a threshold there. You can't charge $1 million for the course, but there is a difference in getting a free course. And the likelihood of me actually finishing that course is going to be far lower than if I paid, $500, $1,000 or whatever. There's that sweet spot in there. So anyways, good job on your follow-up system and processes there.
Well, thanks. I always feel bad telling people that we don't offer another discount, but now I'll stop feeling bad.
Yeah, no, I honestly think that the explaining just what you said to me is I think it's great. And you have to know, I'm trying to remember where this came up. I believe that a tool that we use often is HubSpot with our clients. It's kind of just like the central nervous system of everything. But which is interesting because there's some stuff that I want to have you guys try to help point out with replacing Smart Sheets with Airtable potentially, because Smart Sheets is breaking down. It just doesn't have the capacity, and it doesn't have relational databases, which open up a bunch of other issues. But anyways, with HubSpot, the one of these sales reps that we were talking to, she actually said that they're coached that at a certain point, if someone is asking for a discount beyond a level, and this depends on the tool, it's actually a really good indicator that they're probably not ready for it. And it's going to be bad for you and them if they can't see the value in the price that HubSpot is giving. And they do discount, but there has to be a floor, right? Where it's like something's off because you're asking me to sell you this course for $100, and I need to do a better job explaining what you're going to get out of it, because there is a ton of value here, or maybe you need to wait a couple months and try looking at more YouTube videos or something before you sign up for this. So anyways, that's my opinion on pricing. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on your iterations of that.
Well, the thing that I always go back to with pricing is it's something one of my professors told me in school, which was when you set a price, it should be similar to tightening a screw. If you're not meeting some resistance, you're leaving money on the table. So if nobody ever questions your price, you're probably way underpriced.
Yeah.
So
yeah, true. Well, so let's see what else I have. I think I'm curious how you, with managing this YouTube channel, and now I've met Matt, I'm assuming you've got several other Matts in the business. How do you decide, like, walk me through your strategy in your day? And I'm sure that's changed rapidly, especially there's probably an inflection point where you're doing the same thing, helping some clients, and then it's like, we can't do this the same way anymore, and you have to rebuild. I don't know if that happened to you. But how as of today, how do you decide what to do in a week and where to focus on YouTube or clients or whatever?
These days, I'm really fortunate to have pretty much delegated all of the hands-on work with the clients. So, and to your point, that was a big work in progress for a long time. Obviously, when I started, I was essentially a freelancer, by myself, doing these projects. Then found some folks that had some skills, brought them in. That failed. Like, there was no system to hold them accountable, or all of these pieces. So then I realized, okay, I've got to build a system, and then I found some other talent, and we over time started attracting better talent to the business, and just sticking with it and going. What does my day look like today, though? I sit down at the beginning of my day and I do email response. If I can get through all of it, great. Very rare that I can. And then I just, whatever doesn't get done is going to get pushed off till tomorrow. I'm not one of those people that emails throughout the day, because otherwise it's like I never feel like I can dive deep on something. So, email's always pinging me. Slack is always pinging me. And I try to just kind of batch it, where it's like, get all the email response out, done, and move on.
Do you set a timer for that? Like, I'm going to give 30 minutes right now, and then if I don't get to it, I'll just stop and do the rest later?
I'm not that disciplined or strict on my time. Generally speaking, it's like just get through as much as you can. By the time you get fed up with it, it's probably about an hour. Time to move on. Then it's really focused on content production. So one of the most important role that I can fulfill in the business today is keeping the pipeline moving, and this serves numerous different strategic advantages. Let's say, number one, it cements us as leaders in this space just by having this presence online. And there are other competing channels out there, people that are doing similar stuff, and I welcome that. I think that it's good. It's a rising tide lifts all boats mentality for me. But ultimately, I think at this point at least, I'm still the face of the company, and so that is a big part of it. So we're doing 3 videos a week now, which sounds insane because we started with just one piece of content every week, but we do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday video. That's generally recorded about 2 to 4 weeks in advance, so that it can be sent out to our editors, who then send back a draft, get it approved, all of that stuff. After that, I'm also working on courses, so either enhancing our existing course or building out our new brand, which is to teach other people how to build their own consulting businesses. I'm really passionate about just helping people in general kind of reach that financial freedom and be their own business owner, whether they think about it as, hey, I just want to freelance as a Smartsuite consultant, or, hey, I want to do what Gareth did and build a, $5 million a year, consulting business, like whatever the case may be, wherever you fall in that. I want to help empower people to do that. So, teach the stuff that I learned as much as possible, to shorten that learning curve. So those are my main focuses. And then it's really just dealing with partners now, talking to our folks, our partners at Airtable, talking to our partners at Smartsuite, collaborating on different projects, seeing how we can help them. Because again, this whole idea of, rising tide, the more Airtable gets out there, the more Smartsuite gets out there, the more you're going to hear about us. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm curious if you have to be familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh yeah, of course.
probably, this is like, so I've technically had my own business for 10 years, or 9 years now. But then I had a stint where I went back and worked for Webfoot, and I was kind of at a place of just like this. I had a marketing company, and I didn't think that, like, I was just tired of working 80 hours a week for probably $8 an hour if I penciled it out, maybe less than that. But it was just like, we didn't have, I was young. I never took a business class. I started it right out of school. And then I went and worked for Webfoot, and then it was like, my entrepreneurial hunger, and I did learn a lot in that time of 6 years trying to run a business. Then I worked for Webfoot, and it was like the best mix of, my experience of just the sky's the limit, but I also didn't go very high when I was doing it prior. Then I was in a well-run business, learned processes, like how to run meetings and just like one-on-ones with employees and stuff, and just seeing that structure. And then getting to go back now, I'm like 10 times more excited than I was before, because I don't know, it's just, and there's also lots of, like you said, lots of failures, experience and whatnot. But I'm curious I don't know if you have any thoughts on, or where I was going to go with that was, I heard Gary Vaynerchuk back 9 years ago when he was like, I feel like he's changed a little bit, but he was just like he's still all over everything now. And he's got a massive content team to do that. But one thing that's always stuck with me that I heard him say long ago was the internet is eliminating, especially YouTube in particular, is eliminating like the secret sauce. And I think this is how he said it, that you can pretend like you have a secret sauce and like, not tell anybody and continue to run your business as if that's the thing that is making you the money. But at some point, somebody's going to come out and make a video because they organically found, it's like, you're not that unique to come up with something that nobody else in the world is ever going to think of. But somebody's going to put that information out on the internet, and now it's just public knowledge. So you might as well take every secret that you think you have and broadcast it, and at least be able to claim that I was the one that had this secret sauce at one point, and now I'm giving it to you to use. True, do you agree with that? Or to what extent? And is there anything that you feel like still is like, I don't give away everything? Or are you genuine in a place? Because I feel like Gary Vee is like that, where he's like, I literally will say, I will tell you everything. There's nothing that you can't ask him that he'll give a reasonable response, unless there's like a merger or something that he legally can't talk about. Outside of that, he's like, I'll tell you exactly how to do what I do, but I know that you're probably either going to have to hire me, or most of you won't do it anyways, because execution's hard. So anyways, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah. So I think I am all in on that idea, with the exception that obviously you mentioned, like, hey, if I'm under NDA, obviously I can't talk about something. Or, I don't expect Coca-Cola to come out and say, this is our formula for making Coca-Cola. There are, I'm sure, and it probably pertains more to manufacturing, where you literally have a secret sauce, like in the literal sense. But for service-based businesses, I'm all in. I'm all in on that, and it was actually when I embraced that philosophy that things started to really click for me. I don't hold anything back on my YouTube videos. Nothing is scripted, by the way. Everything is kind of just outlined before we turn the camera on. It's like, all right, this is what I'm going to talk about. Let's see how it goes. And, sometimes, obviously there are edits, and I do the wrong thing. I'm like, oh, that's not what I meant to build. Whoops. That formula didn't work. Let's try that again, But 99% of the time, we're just kind of booking it, just going on. 15 minutes of raw footage is usually edited down to about 10, and that's it. To your exact question, I think people who put it all out there attract more people to their brand, and I think that embracing that is the key to really becoming, any kind of known expert in your niche, period.
Awesome. All right. Last couple questions I have for you. Or I guess before I wrap this up, I always like to ask, is there anything that you came into this conversation and just kind of like, maybe it was just something that was on your mind today or something that you anticipated being asked about or wanted to share? The floor is yours for wrap up thoughts or ideas or whatever you want to do as far as the topic we were discussing.
The only thing I would say is if anybody listening to this thinks, wow, I'm interested to know more about how I can improve my process with automation and all of that, I just want to encourage you that it's not as hard as you might think. Like, when I first heard about automation, I thought, I got to have a computer science degree to do this. This is like, there's no way I can do it. I would be punching out of my weight class, right? And it's just not the case. Like, this stuff, something you said earlier, engineering mind. It's really about identifying a process. And, for the majority of our clients who struggle with this is, I think, probably one of the best things that my company does for our clientele, which is, let's map out what the heck you do, because so many businesses out there don't even know what they do. They can't articulate it. So if you can't tell me in words how you do something, how in the world do you expect me to build a computer program that does that for you in the background? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, automate chaos. Just have zaps going and things triggering and
things firing everywhere, right?
Yeah,
data falling from the sky. I mean, that's kind of what a lot of people want, or they think they want, right? But when we really sit down with a client and we say, look, we're going to start by really understanding your process, and sometimes we're going to have to ask you hard questions that you might not have an answer to, and we're going to have to define those things, because there's no way we can teach a computer to do something that you can't explain to me. So I think that's number one. I think that's like the hardest part about becoming an automation professional, or agency owner or anything. I only go down that tangent because I want to say that anybody who's interested in this stuff, you don't have to have the computer skills. If you can open up a web browser, you have 90% of the skills you need. It's really about thinking logically and being methodical about your approach. And if you think that you've got what it takes, I strongly recommend you explore this space, because there's just such a massive need for no-code consultants right now. And you don't have to have a computer science degree. You can get going. And I don't mean to oversell it, but my honest opinion is numerous millionaires will be made in the next 10 years in this space.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. We just, sorry, I have one other, and by the way, do you have like a hard, I know I told you 40 minutes. I'm assuming you got a couple more minutes, or 10, 15?
Oh, yeah. I'm good.
Okay. I was going to say, so in North Idaho, I had this massive influx of people that moved up here during the pandemic. And this men's group that I'm in, we were all brainstorming, or we had a bonfire with all the dads. And we were just talking about like jobs and how do we, because North Idaho it's not Denver or something where there's like massive companies that are there employing thousands of people, Right. And there's some, infrastructure as far as businesses go, but for the most part, like Spokane's 30, 40 minutes away. But people are talking about like, we need to have these businesses that get started to hire our kids and stuff. And I'm like, man, if people like, yeah, I think I see, and this is just within the last 6 months, and then seeing what you guys are doing, just like the amount of the need to understand basic, like if you're a logical, like you like solving problems, they're like puzzles, Yes. How are we going to do this? What could we have? Let's think of a new way to capture this piece of data and what that means for something else, and then send some information over there. I feel like that's I completely agree that is rather than hoping that a business gets started to hire you, why don't you just, I guess I don't know. I didn't say this to the group because I don't have a plan, like a course of action of like, do these things and then hire somebody. But do you have experience with training people? Because I already have my niche in the painting world, and I feel like I have plenty of work for the foreseeable future, and it's lucrative and it's great. But for someone that's like, no, they don't have any street cred, right? They're just like, I'm smart and I'm going to figure this out. How do you go from nobody to now I'm getting people to pay me thousands of dollars for a project, and do that repeatably? What's the I agree that not the no code part is easy, but actually facilitating a livelihood gets into like more hairy water.
So we have a course on our secondary brand that's called, our second brand is named Built to Scale. That's the number 2. Built to Scale soft launched a year ago. So early 2022, we launched the course to a private beta of 5 people. 5 people that had reached out to me and said, hey, I'm really curious about becoming a no-code consultant in Airtable or Zapier or whatever. And I said, all right, there's enough people, enough interest here. I'm gonna teach this. So I put together a course. Worked with a lot of those people, like here and there, like an hour or 2 every quarter, just kind of checking in with them as they went through the course. Of those 5, 3 of them are currently making over $10,000 a month today with their businesses. So that's pretty good, 60% success. Because that's our goal in the course, is to get you to 10K a month, which, you live in Coeur d'Alene. I think you can get a pretty good living off of 10K a month. One of them is doing 50 a month. Just like hit it and just, so that's like, and I don't mean to toot our horn here, but them's the numbers. So it was a really successful launch, and we just compiled all that feedback and then just relaunched the course last week. And so that's like very exciting for us as we ramp that up again. To answer your question though, more strategically in terms of like, what are the steps? Number 1, you have to pick your niche. Like this was my first mistake when I got laid off. I said, well, I came from a finance background, financial analysis. And I was like, I'm going to be a financial analyst for all the companies, and I'm going to use Excel. And so I went out there and did a video or 2 on YouTube about Excel and got 0 traction. Number 1, it was incredibly saturated, as you would expect. Excel's been around since like 75. And then and the other thing was, I didn't talk to anyone in particular. I was just trying to solve all the problems instead of a specific problem. And so the first thing anybody who's going out on their own has to do is discover your niche, which, by the way, I have a 5-day challenge at Built to Scale if you're interested that will help you through this. But it's really all about what software do you use and who do you use it for and what problems are you solving for them. If you can articulate that, at least to yourself, now you know how to create more content to attract those eyeballs. And this is a pro tip. When I started my YouTube, when I started Gap Consulting, my first YouTube video on Airtable, I put some advertising dollars behind. As I said, I never really saw any traction on my previous videos or anything like that. So I was like, what if I just spend a little money and show it to people? So $5 a day, I was getting views for like 2-3 cents. So I was, getting a lot of views on $5, and 2 to 3 people every day would reach out to me off of those ads. So you land one project, off of a $5 investment, you're making a pretty good ROI if you're charging a couple grand for that project. So
that's awesome. I love that. I feel like I am in an interesting place where we like the packages that I'm selling right now are very repeat, like I would say 80% similar from one business to another. But then there's always the 20% that I don't know, because I got tied in with a consulting group that has 100 something painting companies that are all independent around the country. And so they all the consulting group teaches business processes. And one of the things that they push heavily is smart sheets. Okay. So all these businesses use Smartsheet. And so I already know that there's there's this thing there that is a growing pain for them. And I'm trying to decide, do I, at some point, because this is just in one little niche, I feel like I love the idea of going more to I'm going to teach your own employees at this painting company how to do it. So just watch this instead of having Chris do it. And then Chris could do it because I've got a team now of, we've got 3 people that are assisting in the actual technical build out of stuff. But anyways, yeah, it's interesting. I love the, I've never really gone hard after YouTube. But I think do you think, I'm assuming no, but going after painting companies in particular on YouTube is like an interesting niche, or is it better to go, I would guess it's probably better to go after a software that's maybe more applicable, or I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think when you define a niche or a niche, you have to do it from both sides of the equation. Like, what do you, like, if you're using I'm always going to mess it up. Smartsheet. If you use Smartsheet, that's, I could go out and say, hey, I'm a Smartsheet consultant. But if I tell you, hey, I'm a Smartsheet consultant for painting companies and other similar service-based businesses, if you as a painting company owner are sitting back and thinking like, I need some help, I need to bring in a consultant, and you've got 5 different folks to choose from, and one of them is specifically
in your industry,
like, industry related, using the software, like teaches this or implements the software that you are using, all of that. That's the match made in heaven. That's the person you're going to go with 9 times out of 10. So I think that allows you to actually charge more and work less because you have a defined process specific to painting industry, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you do a project.
Yeah. Have you heard, so one other random question with pricing, have you heard of Alex Hormozi lately? He's
No, I don't know that name.
He's made a big splash online. I feel like you've probably seen something. If you're on YouTube, he's done a lot of content. Literally in the last 12 to 18 months, he's like gone really heavy. And one of the things that he has a book called $1 Million Offers, I think it's called. And even just with your course thing, I feel like if you haven't heard of him, you need to go read that book, because he is the owner of acquisition.com, and he built a gym, you know what I'm talking about now?
Yes. Somebody else shared a video of his. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, he talks about the way that you can price things is if you think about a numerator and denominator, and the output of that equation is price. So in the numerator, you have the confidence that I will get the result that I'm being told, and then the value that this result is to me. And then in the denominator, I have the time to get the result and the effort that I have to put in to get the result. So again, if you think about, let's just put some numbers in there, that the confidence I'm going to get it is 90%, because you've got some other testimonials, and that's good. And so my confidence goes up. So you can increase your price by having testimonials or things that drive the value up or the confidence. But the other way you can increase your price is by driving down the time to the result. So if I can tell you, I can get you some 6-pack abs in, instantly, swipe your credit card here and boom, I got abs immediately. That's infinite value. And you can never get there, obviously. But if you can develop something that allows for it to be a week instead of a month or instead of 3 months, now there's more value there because time is money. Yeah. And then the last part is, how hard do I have to work? So if you're going to come in and do the entire thing for me, that's also more valuable than you're going to have to show up to a meeting and do, 4 hours a week in order to get the thing. So anyways, I thought that was a really interesting way to map out what are the things we can do to increase these variables and what are the things we can do to decrease these variables, and then the price is affected. So, but Alex Hormozi has I love the content that he's putting out. He's kind of like a younger Gary Vee, in my opinion, and not as aggressive as
and much buffer, right? He's
very
pretty big here.
Yeah, huge. You could tell that he did well in the gym industry. You wouldn't want to buy a gym launch program from a scrawny guy that was like, trust me. All right. So closing questions. What are give me top 3 book recommendations?
The first book that really changed my life as an adult, it's a little bit controversial. It's fiction called Atlas Shrugged, written by Ayn Rand. It taught me to love business. Second one, is in the no-code, low-code space in particular. It's actually right behind me, written by Phil Simon. It's called No Code, Low Code. It just talks about what's coming really in terms of, where we're headed next with these software tools. And the other one comes from Mike Michalowicz, who's an entrepreneur, writer, author for entrepreneurs and business owners. He wrote a book called Profit First, and it's all about how to think about money in your business and why. Basically, he breaks down why accounting and general finance is worthless when it comes to small business ownership, where you have to really manage your cash flow, because a big business that has, accountants and all that, they're following, GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting principles. And they have their own way of doing it, and SEC regulations and all this stuff, right? Small business owners have a much more immediate fire to put out, and it's cash flow. And so it talks about how you can set up your small business to make sure you never go bankrupt. Really, really found it valuable.
The Atlas Shrugged book, you said it changed your perspective or something? Just what's the brief? I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you anything about it.
It's a massive tome. It's like 1,400 pages. So buckle up if you're going to make a commitment. It's a big one, but it basically tells the story about, how there are people in society who are producers, and then there are those who would rather, let's say, leech off of the producers. And I grew up in a household that didn't teach me that business was a good path. In fact, I didn't think that it was a viable, major in college. And I came at it from a very academic perspective. In fact, my undergrad was in applied math. So hold on one second here. I've got a fire to put out downstairs. I don't know if you're picking up that sound.
Just barely.
Okay.
We're about done. I don't know if just this question and then movie and then we're out. So
cool. Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully that fixes it. Sorry about that. But yeah. So it basically just tells the story about how there are people in this world who want to make it a better place by putting in their best effort and making a profit. And for some reason, and this is a lot of the mindset that I had to do as a small business owner myself, like accepting the fact that I was due a certain amount, or that I could attract wealth. And it sounds so, woo-woo, and I don't really prescribe to a lot of that. But if you're not open to bringing wealth in, and if you're not accepting of the fact that you can charge $10,000 for a project, I mean, the first time I put that out in the world, I almost choked on my own words. It was like, how could I be worth this much? Because I'd been trained by corporate America that my time was worth about $35 an hour. And here I was billing myself at 150, 200, 250. It just kept going, right? And so that was a big mind shift for me. Anyway,
I love that.
Atlas Shrugged helped me to understand that business is like something that's virtuous, for lack of a better word.
I love that. Awesome. And favorite movie?
Oh man, I don't think anything will ever beat the original Matrix movie. For me.
I just watched that literally a week ago, maybe, because I had never seen it start to finish.
What?
And, yeah, just like ridiculous. I'm a big movie fan. I just never, especially after getting married, my wife, we're always trying to find movies that we both enjoy. And I told her like a week ago, all right, because someone else had brought up The Matrix on a podcast. I was like, we have to watch this. Like, I've seen like 80% of it, but in clips. Never just like sat down and watched the whole thing. Well, so anyways, yeah, we watched the whole thing a week ago. It is like even more applicable today, just like the world that, and it's interesting how we were talking about it afterwards, how your phone can easily pull you into the Matrix, like you can be sucked into, you're not physically out there, but then anyways, it's just like, it's a very interesting thing to think about, what's the personifying the whole internet, or the phones in particular. I feel like it's more phones than the internet, as like this machine that's trying to use humans to power the the machine, you know? It's interesting.
It really is. I just remember watching that, gosh, I think it probably came out when I was late teens, early 20s. I don't remember the exact year, but
1999.
Okay, that's like I was 19 years old. So, yeah, it came out and I was just like head back in the movie theater, just eyes wide open.
Yeah.
Changed everything. I was like, I still think we're in a simulator, by the way, but that's another story.
Yeah, it's a fascinating concept. It's great. All right. Well, if people want to get in touch, what's your recommended method for them to do so?
Honestly, just check out YouTube if you're interested in any of the stuff that we talked about here today. Go and look it up online on YouTube. If you don't find us under Airtable or Smartsuite or Built to Scale, then we're doing something wrong. And there's a lot of different ways you can reach out to us through the channel there. So check us out and just look up Gareth Pronovost online.
Awesome. I was just for fun, I'm going to type in how to Airtable. Have you ever seen if your videos are towards the top of that?
I mean, it changes constantly. How did I do? Am I in the top 3 at least?
You are number 2. So a beginner's guide to Airtable with Gap Consulting.
We'll have to work on that. Step it up to number 1.
There you go. I was going to say, I thought it was the thumbnail made it look like it was a different person, but it is you. All right. Well, thanks so much, Gareth. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for your attention and listening to this episode of The Pursuit of Purpose. Your feedback and comments mean the world to me. If you liked what you heard, please take a second, leave me a 5-star review on iTunes. If you've got suggestions for future episodes or just want to say hi, shoot me an email at chris@chriskiefer.com. Don't forget, I make it a point to include all the links to the books, movies, and resources mentioned on this episode in the show notes. You can see those directly below in the description or on my website, chriskiefer.com. Thanks so much, guys.